Before we go ahead, a little information about the group. Paleo ECR India was established with the simple aim of connecting early career researchers working across paleo and earth system sciences for fostering scientific discussions and collaborations. We are truly grateful to see a number of researchers, students, and enthusiasts from different institutions coming together to make this platform a vibrant scientific community. Let me introduce today's speaker with a small question. What happens when one of the largest volcanic eruptions in human prehistory occurs at a time when modern humans are expanding across different parts of the globe? How does such an eruption alter climate and ecosystems and in turn affect human populations? Dr. Sourav Mukhopadhyay, our speaker of today, will be guiding us through this fascinating question. Dr. Mukhopadhyay is currently an assistant professor with the Archaeological Science Group at Department of History, Captain Williamson, Sangma State University, Meghalaya. He is a geoarchaeologist and earth scientist who works in quaternary paleoclimatology, geomorphology, and human environment interactions, particularly in South Asia. For his work, he uses a combination of archaeological and geological evidence, including stone tools, OSL dating, paleoenvironmental records, and tephrochronology. The title of today's talk is The Toba Supereruption in Human Prehistory, Current Debates, Challenges, and Future Directions. So before we begin, a couple of housekeeping announcements. Kindly keep your microphones muted throughout the talk. Please feel free to post any questions into the chat box. The presentation will be running for around 40 minutes and will be followed by a question and answer session of around 15 to 20 minutes, which will be moderated by Dr. Shukla. With that, I would like to invite Dr. Mukhopadhyay to begin his presentation. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation and joining us today, sir. We look forward to your talk. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Banu, for nice introduction, I can say, and also I can thanks Dr. Arvind Sukla for inviting and formulating this wonderful forum. So let me share my screen before we move into that. So basically, I can say before I share that screen, that is a topic which is very much fascinating to me when I was working in the PhD in Deccan College associated with Kolkata. So that time I have visited those kind of site which is reported, and that is the long-term debate is going on. So there I must generate the curious about that what is exactly that volcanic and what is the chemistry behind this. And if this is so, then I visited couple of site. So then I suddenly got a, that accidentally you can say, or luckily I got the same the depositional as in my study area. So I'll talking about that also. So before going to the details, so let jump into that talk. So basically the talk will be mostly the Toba eruption, which is related to that human prehistory and what kind of that current debates, challenges, and that what is the future direction. So in this way, so I have divided this topic. So in the three phase. So first we have to discuss what is the current scenario, what is the history, and where exactly the challenges has come up, what are those debate, and then of course we'll see that how we can, the cope up with those problem and what are those challenges when we are talking about science, methodology, and proxy and all. So so now you see that is a Toba caldera. Okay, so this is the image which is taken by that NASA Terra satellite in 2006. So basically, this is the island. So that Toba caldera, it is actually multi times erupted. That island means the eruption, volcanic eruption has happened multi time, not on the single time. But remember that is the 74 kilo years Toba Tetra, that is a super volcano. Why it is super? Because it's a large scale expansion, and that expansion goes lead up to not only the Southeast Asia of the South, that our continent, India, but it's also affected up to that Africa. Okay. So I'll show you some
Sure.
sort of that
I just want
evidence.
to
I
interrupt you. The slide is not visible properly. It's like kind of blur. So can you just please like reshare it again because the slide is
okay.
quite blur for us. Yeah, the screen is yeah.
Okay, now visible?
Yeah, it's visible, but like the same. It is
Same.
like
Arvind, can it be due to the connectivity issues?
I think yes, but others are also feeling the same. Like
Yeah, for
if
me
you
also it's blurred only.
Yeah, it's same from my side also.
Okay. Now fine.
no, it's the same.
It's still blurred for me, sir.
Same here, so
What
it's
what
Okay,
what
can I
what you can
rejoin?
do?
Huh? Yes.
Yes.
Okay, is it clear?
Sort of is no, it's the
It's not
same.
clear.
Maybe he can
Same.
email the presentation to one of us and then we can
Yes,
share on his
yes,
behalf.
yes.
Yeah, that would be the
Okay.
best.
Okay.
Sort of you can share it with me, and then I'll monitor the slides.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll WhatsApp you, huh?
Yes. Anyway.
I don't know what we will see.
Maybe on the WhatsApp, if the file size is too big, it will not, I think,
Yeah, it's
visible to.
52 MB.
Yeah, so you can just go to like use the email, the Paleo ECR email.
I'll send it through that WhatsApp. You check that, Arvind. I have sent.
Yes.
Send it to you. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so now you just unshare the screen and I'll start sharing.
Okay.
this is clear, sir.
Okay, good. We are here. Yes. Now
Okay.
you just need to instruct me when to move.
Yeah, so this is that, I think second slide is okay. Okay, so the talk will be in the threefold aspect. So first we'll discuss about the current debates. Okay. So what are those challenges is going on, then that is the second one. And then of course we'll see in the future direction. So what are those methodological challenges? What are those proxy challenges? How we can do, and we can cope up with those challenges and all. We can discuss more than next.
Okay.
Yeah. So now you see, this is actually the caldera. So Toba caldera, which is situated in the Sumatra island. So this is the island where mostly that eruption has been taken up that several times, not only the single times, but in the 74 kilo years, the super eruption was happened during that time when this is that land was distracted from that mainland and created subduction zone. And this is the caldera, which is actually the field of the water is forming the lake. So this is how when that lake has formed and that multiple times the eruption is going on. So can you go with the next one?
Yeah.
So people basically classify this Toba eruption in the 4 phases of the classifications. So first of all, that is called HDT, then OTT, MTT, and YTT. So in the scale you see that is the much older, that is Toba, that is around 1.2 million years back, and that is the younger, that is almost 74 kilo years. So in between you see that is the interval of that, so almost around 400 kilo years, right? So that downside, the image you see, that is kind of that people are mostly interested with exactly that what happened in the past. So in terms of that, they identify that is the mainland of that, the where exactly the YTT was located. So people are trying to collect the sample and try to do the chronology to establish the general chronology of the frame. So they found only you can see that HDT written on that, and then below that is MTT, and then outer boundary, it is basically it is kind of fulfill of that YTT. So it means that, and this is the YTT, and this below entire that is YTT, OTT. So it means that is the eruption is well documented and well preserved. Now talking about that, so the tephra, when this the volcanic eruption has taken up, and the surrounding area was affected too much. Okay, so as you know, if you see the present scenario of that Italy the volcano recently, so that affected and that catastrophic effect is also affected to the human life. So the question is what exactly the challenges has happened through that? Because as you know, when you are talking about that quaternary, last 1 millions, so there are definitely that human evolution story is interconnected, right? And when we are talking about the super eruption, that is around 74 kilo years, it means that always we are associated with the modern human species. So that's the earlier record also, whether that record is still preserved in the Indian continent or other continent. So that we'll see. But in terms of this, I can say that is a 74 kilo years eruption. Can you go with the next one? Yes, when we collected some sort of that earlier that reported site and we framed that model and we are trying to put it into the distance versus the depositional record, considering all the ocean and that terrestrial record. So it is goes up to you see that is the Andaman Sea, the Arabian Sea, and that Arabian Sea, and then it is goes up to the Africa continent and of the South Africa. So now you see almost 6,000 kilometers that as was affected through that. Okay. So now today we'll topic about is that we have to talking about only the subcontinent of the terrestrial record. I'll not touch into the continent that ocean record. So now we have to see when that the history, when that Indian subcontinent, that Toba eruption record has, got published and how it is. So in 1980s, there are some sort of that group which is actually working in this, the archaeological context. So that some sort of the group came from that Australia, like that Williamson and then that J.D. Clark. So they actually collaborate with that Allahabad University Archaeology Department. So associated with B.D. Misra and then J.D. Clark, so B.D. Misra and then J.N. Paul. So they explored the area of that in the Soon Valley, in the Middle Soon Valley, and there are some sort of the site. So they first reported in 1982. So first they don't know whether it is the coming from where it is. So they don't know, but only single they reported. And later on, when discussion is going on, can you go the next? So they basically talking about that is that YTT. Can you go next slide? Yes. But simultaneously, that another group of people from the Deccan College, so Professor S.N. Rajaguru and then Professor Misra, Ravi Korisekar, and then Professor Kale. So they are basically working in the depositional history of that Western Ghat and Western Ghat formation. so geological as well as that archaeological context. So they found some sort of archaeological evidence, archaeological antiquities associated with some sort of that ash deposit. So first in Kale, Professor Kale, so from Pune University in 1968, so he reported some sort of that Acheulean tool, right? Acheulean tool in the sense, those who don't know, I can say Acheulean, it's a kind of culture which is the oldest culture present in our India. If I'm talking about that chronology, that is goes up to 1.5 million years. That record preserved in India, so we are very much lucky. So that is in Athirapakkam from the Chennai, close to the Chennai area. So if I'm talking about that Acheulean, that is kind of, that 1 million history. So they reported and they found kind of the right hand side, you see, that is the very old picture. And that is kind of hand axe and the cleaver. Basically, the Acheulean people, they use the stone and they nap some sort of that stone and they prepared some sort of tool. Okay, so in that tool, that hand axe cleaver, that is the main associated tool. So interestingly, they found that tool and some sort of that fossils evidence they also recover from that. Now you see that stratigraphical record in the left side, Kale. You see this is kind of that Acheulean tool, and then associated with they've got some sort of fossils evidence of the elephant. So this is that elephant tusk. You can see that black and white image. So simultaneously, in the next year, Professor Robi Sector, he got another major discovery of that same area locality. So he got that ash deposit. Now you see that left corner side, you see that white color, okay, white color patches, that is the ash. So now question is whether it is that deposit of that ash, what is the chronology of this? So when we are talking about the archaeological record, so archaeological record, it's kind of say almost it's not that much young. It could be the older one. So they propose and they suggested basically this ash might be an OTT because associated with this tool, now you see that the Coricipta, the stratigraphic graph, is written that is the Acheulean artifacts and the fossils, right? And just below you see that is the aspect. So it means that is the below, it means maybe it is older than that. If I consider is that that tool which is Acheulean belongs to 800 to 1 million, so might be kind of associated with that time frame. So they actually propose that is could be OTT, oldest ever Topra. Okay, go to the next one. So interestingly, that is the site when they discover, you remember that is the Williamson and the Clark, J.D. Clark. So he actually then another group of people, when this kind of that discovery has came up, then that the Cambridge and that Oxford group, so they much interested on to do the analysis of that ash and try to correlate with that the source material. Because in 1982, when that J.D. Clarkson and that Williamson, so they reported and they published that area where exactly the Narmada, that is the Swan Valley. So they don't know exactly that what and where this ash has came up. So basically they collected that ash and they do some sort of the geochemistry. So major element and the minor element, you can see some sort of that is a read data, okay, normalized read data, and they read data, what they have done, they collected some sort of that source material from the Toba, and that is the S, that Indian context S, and their data they matching. And of course, that matching the data and they are putting that is kind of 74 kilo years the S. So it confirmed that is the S has came from that Toba eruption. So likewise, can you go to the next? Okay. Now, interestingly, in 1993, so group of people from the GSI, so that is S.K. Acharya and that P.K. Basu, so they also interested to analyze those kind of that assets. Okay. So what they have done, they actually collected some sort of that Britishers reported, which is unpublished. They collected all those reports, and this is a very good article, review kind of article. And also when that the group from that Oxford, the Chestnut, then they correlate, and then this entire they frame that all those sites which is belongs to YTT, youngest of whatever. So in terms of that cookery in the sense that the Bori site, which is that I showed you that earlier, that is the Maharashtra one. So that site also they propose as a youngest whatever. Okay, so this is how that all the debate and controversy has started up. So that Professor Misra and then Professor Rajaguru made a comment on that. So because based on that the geochemistry, so they ignore totally that archaeological evidence. So they make a comment and then they also reply, and that what are these reply from that Basu. So they are basically saying that the two that stratigraphy has been published, that is Kali and the Kori sector, so they are basically not correlated with anyone. And also there are very less number of artifacts, so it doesn't fit any context of that, the chronology. Either you have a absolute chronology of that particular in the artifacts you are talking about. But in the later on, then in 1995, so Professor Misra, so she published and in anthropological journal, so in that current anthropology, and he actually convinced that is the site from Bori and nearby. So all the date that is come from that uranium thorium that is coming and the around 800 kilo years. Okay, so mostly they are not a YTT. So likewise, this is the debate has formulate and can you go for the next one? Then again another story came up. So then this is that Professor Puri sector, he actually this Westgate from that Oxford. So he actually collecting all those that Bori site as, and they again go through the geochemistry. And then when he go through that all that Son Valley and that the Kukri Valley that has, and then again they differentiate and putting into that you see the ternary diagram. So all those silica content and then the assays are coming from in the same pattern, right? And they distinguish that OTT is come of that the segregate group is coming, cluster group is somehow different, but none of the sample of that India is falling into the OTT and YTT. So it not can be possible to consider of those Bori site is a OTT. Can you go to the next one? So again, then that can you go back? So this is that the can you go to the PIVHA? So this is how that they made a comment. And again, that Professor Misra and that Rajguru made the comment that Bori cannot be the YTT because in the single frame, because the previous year in 1995, the Misra has proposed a couple of that date, even in thorium that is goes up to the 800. So likewise, they have, the made that debate and controversy of that what is exactly that Bori and all. So can you go that next? Meantime, so that another fellow from anthropology from US, that is Stanley Ambrose, so he actually basically working in the South Africa, and he was basically interested to know about that human dispersal theory and what exactly happened, whether it is a control through that ash, whether control through that climatic event, whether control through the ecological environment and all. So he proposed, he collected some sort of the mitochondrial DNA because in South Africa, so there are huge number of sites which is recorded that fossils evidence, and that fossils evidence is very well preserved compared to our India. India, if you're talking about that India, so India, we have very less amount of that fossils, only we have that is Hathnora record, but still that is also controversial. That is whether it is a belongs to Homo erectus or Homo habilis. But when he was talking about this is the two important hypothesis concept, he putting that is called bottleneck concept. Okay, so how it is bottleneck? So if you see the bottle, right, in the bottom of the bottle, the area surface area is the big. When you consider in the bottom, the bottle of that neck, it is kind of surface area is small. So it means when they formulate the genetical data of that population history, so he found some sort of that the marker, which is after that some sort of that evolution has started off. If I consider that Homo habilis, if I consider that Homo erectus, then some sort of that there are some sort of dispersal has happened. So he basically putting, if I consider of that modern human, so he says in the modern human, dispersal has happened through that level from the Africa, it is around 100 kilo years. Then another phase of that dispersal has happened around 45 kilo years. In between, he actually correlate with the Toba as formulate that volcanic winter. Why it is called volcanic winter? Because they are thinking that because of that super eruption, so all those ashes is cover up that southern continental, means that atmospheric that disturbance, and all those gases, sulfur, and then all those CO2. It is actually that obstacle for that the sunlight. So that's what they are proposing. Because of that the area is kind of winter, and then the climate kind of degradation and cooling effect environment has impacted on that. So in that way, they are collecting, and then they propose kind of that effective population size. And he collected that DNA data and proposed that is the time frame when that in my score is one of the that is the population has increased very rapidly, and then again it is increasing. So this is how this concept was they are proposing, and this is the one of the most cited article also. Later on that this theory has actually that is defunct, and then they rejected this proposal by group of another people, means kind of that Petraglia group of that, and the group from that Oxford and Cambridge. Can you go to the next? So this is how when can you go next? Yes. So this is how another challenges has come up when most controversial site is the Bori. Then again, Professor Misra and Dev, he got that tried to excavate one site that is called Morgaon from the Maharashtra. It is located in the Kara Valley. So in the upper that this Bhima Basin. So there he also got one the Toba deposit, right? So Toba deposit, again, it is coming up, and this Toba deposit, and when they are going to excavate that site, and they found some sort of that early Acheulean tools, like same country, that context of that Bori. And you see that is the right hand side, that is actually that human that tool, that is Acheulean tool, kind of index and cleaver. So again, that controversy going up. So if Bori is not YTT, then what is the that Morgaon also, means they also propose that is Morgaon also not YTT, it's also belongs to the OTT. Can you go to the next? So this is how that when proposed things came up, then Professor Sangma from that Pune University, so he actually taken up some sort of that site, and he is a bit expert on that paleomag and that the magnetostratigraphy. So he is doing the paleomagnetic stratigraphy of that some sort of the site like Bori, Bodham, and some sort of that site from that Dharmata, Gandhigram and all. So all those sites, they basically belongs to kind of that Blooms and Matiyama boundary, means that is found almost that reversal, that polarity, and the normal polarity it is comes like if you remember that the magnetic stratigraphy. So in the boundary of the Matiyama and Blooms, so that Blooms boundary they found this is the artifacts basically not belongs to, and that site is basically primary mostly in the old one, means around kind of around belongs to 7 and 800 kiloyears. So likewise, that Westgate, who is the another group, so he again collaborate with the Deccan College group, and he proposed to do some sort of date of the Morgaon and Bori and the Gandhigram, and they published this the article in 2011 in JGR, Journal of Earth System Science. So there they do some sort of the dating that is called your argon-argon dating, right? So that argon-argon dating, they propose the date is around like almost the date is coming around 800 to 700 kiloyears. So likewise, they try to establish those site is not belongs to the YTT, but it belongs to OTT. So likewise, different kind of that the hypothesis, and then that the debate is going on still. After that, can you go to the next? After that, this is that the things the story came up from that South India. So that is very important site. That is Jolapuram. So Michael Petraglia group from the Oxford. So they actually came, visited, and collaborated with the Professor Korisector, and they excavate that site. Now from there, they publish this report in the Science, and where they are basically, if you remember, as I mentioned in that Ambrose, the paper, so when that human dispersal has happened, and then he was trying to telling about that due to that eruption, that some sort of that population size has been decreased, right? So this group, they are proposing that is the S, and they found some sort of that another kind of Acheulean culture. It's not another color, that culture that is called Middle Paleolithic culture. So Middle Paleolithic culture is basically that another culture which is younger than the Acheulean one. Okay, so first Acheulean, then it's come on the Middle Paleolithic, means that is almost you can say 385 to almost 50,000 kilometers. In that span of the time, this much of population was surviving in this area. But we don't know exactly that the Middle Paleolithic, that culture, which human species it belongs to. So there are another controversy started up, that some people they believe that is kind of Middle Paleolithic is basically Homo erectus, means Archean, and some people they believe that is kind of human, a modern human, means Homo erectus, Homo sapiens. So likewise, they try to put into the frame, and then this is the OSL date they got. And interestingly, you see that is the western part of this Indian, that the site came into the 74 kilo years date. So it means they try to establish this is the YTT as record. Can you go to the next one? So another sort of that story came up in 2024. So that Anil Devra, so he's from that this MSU Vadodara. So he's my friend colleague. So he have done a very good job to, they excavate that site called Retarapalli. It is close to the Andhra. And there he also got that the date is around 74, 75 kilo years the S, because he is taking up that upper and that lower, and that is the upper and lower is closing 74 kilo years, 76. It means plus minus almost 6. So it means come around, that 70 to 75. So it is quite convincing that is the record of that as YTT is preserved in the Andhra Pradesh, which is close to also the Jwalapuram, and that record is quite supportable. But interestingly, that Kuri sector, recently I can tell you that Jwalapuram, so Kuri sector, again, he is trying to do some sort of that AMSJ, because he gets some sort of that, the cell. Okay, so some sort of that cell he recovered from that this Jwalapuram site, and recently he got around 30 to 40,000 kilo years dead. So that is also another, the controversy is started up. Then can you go to that next one? Okay, so then again, another sort of that challenges is going up, as I mentioned, that Bori and the Borgao. So that the Singhvi group, so from the PRL, so Robiul Visas, he's tried to put up another methodology developed, that luminescence method, because whatever that the date they are proposing based on that FESPA dating method. And that FESPA method, they are proposing some sort of good date, right? Rehi and that Kunthala, Kunthali, that is the two is basically in the Son Valley, and they are taking another sort of that the sample from that Bori and Morgaon. And you see, interestingly, that Morgaon and Bori, the date is kind from an enormous, right? Kind of 27 and 41. So again, kind of that the thing is going challenges, and they are basically interpret that because of that Muri and the Morgaon, maybe kind of it is a terrestrial record. So kind of that rework things has happened through that, and means maybe it is a means older, but again and again that river, that activities and the geomorphic processes, because of that reactivation, that the last deposition age is coming around this, because OSL is giving you the last deposition age, right? Can you go to the next one? So in terms of that, another sort of that next, in terms of the next one, so they propose that another sort of that dual drop. So C is actually, can you go the next one? So they are from that Australian group. So he actually in the go and collect the sample from the Narmada Valley and do some sort of the date. And that is the date you see. That is kind of they do some sort of the single grains, then that IRSL and that post IRSL. So this post IRSL, they basically use kind of that phase for some sort of the fading correction they have done. And that date has kind of coming around 54, 59 like that, but it's not reach up to 75. So what are those? Again, they are interpreting that is kind of rework and primary and secondary that deposit. in the base of that A dates and also the some sort of the field work. In that field work, they basically highlight that is kind of fluvial system. And this, the section is very close to that, the Son Valley. So maybe erosion and that fill and cutting activities is going on. So maybe possibility is that to rework the site and all. Can you go into the second one? Yeah. Next. So then again, in such a zones that one another lady, she was walking in this field and that she's from that Oxford, so Petraglia student. So he came and he was trying to understand about that primary and the secondary and the rework, because this is the most, again the debate things is going up. So he basically went through that site and he look into this. Now you see the field photographs of that. This is kind of that Narmada Valley photos. And this is kind of the date coming, the published, the Gati et al. In 2011. So they are basically proposed that is the, if it is secondary, it means that is a rework. So maybe that is the access thickness is very high. Or those who are the primary means that is a context, either it is a OTT or YTT. So their asset deposition is very less. Okay. So this is how they propose. And when I collected all those data and try to do some sort of the deposition model, we found that eastern part deposition is very much high in compared to the western part. And those are the focusing on that, the Orissa and the Andhra, there the deposition of the S, which might be that is the YTT, that is 74 kiloyears, is very much high concentrated positive. So can you go into the next one? So this is how when I study that area, go next, that I was walking in the volcanic ash eruption, that searching on that that Damodar Valley, and accidentally I got some sort of that ash record. But when I try to collect the sample, that time I didn't realize that is the YTT. When I do some sort of that lab analysis, so that time I came to know this is kind of as how I can confirm because of some sort of that glass shards, which is you see. So it's kind of almost 2 centimeter. And interestingly, that is you see that is kind of phyllogenic clay. And in that clay, this is the pinch up of the 2 centimeter of that ash is very much, that means very well preserved. So this is how I try to convince. So maybe it is a YTT, and then I have collected one vessel sample, and that interestingly, that vessel sample, the date is coming around almost 18 kiloyears. Okay. So now you see, if I consider it is a primary, it means that is around 50 to 55 kiloyears as gap, right? The depositional gap is there. So that is also convincing because when we do some sort of that magnetic analysis, because that the mineral magnetic is one of the best proxy I can say. When I see that is kind of 10 centimeter interval, I have sampling to understand whether this layer have some sort of that either any kind of mixing or not, because that susceptibility, the magnetic susceptibility, if it is mixing, so some sort of, that anomalous or that kind of that the data is coming up. But here you can see the static, that the data point is not that much vary, is kind of almost same. And also some sort of that two zone I have identified, because this is kind of one zone and another one, this is that another zone, based on that, the diamagnetic and that ferromagnetic mineral composition. And you see after this boundary that this HIM and then SIM, those the data is kind of twofold. It means that is kind of some sort of the general that change is happening through this. So we interpret, because this is that high interpretation of that SIM and then that is IRM. So it represents that is kind of oxidation has been happened due to some sort of that huge long gap. And this gap has been fulfilled when that is the sand is full, fill the valley. So it means the valley fill has been activity after LGM kind of things, but total LGM is totally missing in the Barakar Valley, the Damodar and Barakar Valley. So this is how we have came and to understand about. Then of course we have done some sort of geochemistry also, and from that geochemistry that is confirmed that is the ash is coming from the Toba, and mostly silica content is vary from that one almost 78 to 80 to 85% silica content. So, and this is how we can document those sites. Can you go in the next one? Yes. So then the question is remain that whether this the eruption has affected through that human population, likely that modern human, either they have shifted from that site means India, because India we have a lot of archaeological site and as well as that geological site where that the assets has preserved. So the question is still there. And then in 2020, and you see that is the all the past climatic record is already published and reported. And this record you see there are some sort of that during the period of the time, there are some sort of that, the major event and that is affected through the climate and also the atmospheric disturbance has happened during the through of the time. So what happened in this time? Can you go into the next one? Okay, so then again, that is the Clarkson group. So he published this article in the Nature Communications that major breakthrough the research from that the Dhava site. So Dhava site, what they have got that. So two basically measure that industry record. One is that Middle Paleolithic. If you remember the Jwalapuram one. So that Middle Paleolithic is associated with that contemporary of that Toba. And then they also got some sort of another industry that is called blade industry, microblade. Okay. So that microblade in India basically coming around 40 to 50,000 previous. So there are that is a theory as proposed by Misra and then Petraglia group. So almost during the time, and they found that this is the S certs and also reported that Dhava. So 74 kilo years after that, the industry was continuation and that goes up to 50,000. So it means that the industry has changed up, industry is continuing, but in that is not affected, and the people means that modern human, they were survived during the period of the super eruption. So they are not shifted to the other another place and all. So this is how they kind of break through that journey and then they publish in the Nature. So this is how that one of the biggest questions they sort out, but still the another sort of question is still remain. So can you go in the next one? Yes. Now what are those that if I consider that is the primary and the secondary as, is it possible to, that to distinguish that two primary or secondary, is it possible? Because there are could be possible, I think, and that's what we need some sort of that multi-proxy analysis, some high resolution, the date and all. So what we have to do in that, can you go in the next? Yes. So another proxy that is called is microstructure analysis. In that microstructure, can you go in the next? So in that fluvial system, when that fluvial system, that river is carrying that some sort of the sediment, if it is the rewalk or the secondary, definitely the intervention come from that river, right? If somewhere that access boundary they are cutting from somewhere here, suppose you consider some cut from here and some deposited there. So in between, so there are some kind of erosion and that some sort of that weathering has happened, right? So this is how you see that some sort of that image of the SCM image, and microstructure is nothing, it's kind of structure which is preserved in that single quartz or feldspar also. But why it is important? Because in that particular the structure you cannot see in your naked eye, but in that microstructure means that SCM and that high resolution, that microscopic analysis, you can identify those structure. So in that way we have recently published. Can you go in the next one? So in that way, so we have published in that during my postdoc time. So this is the site is from that Tapi Valley. So almost we have collected that 14 meter of that the sediment, and that is basically the quaternary. But we don't know right now. We don't have the dates. But in the terms of that, the magnetic analysis means the subsibility, and then I have some sort of that we have collected the sediment, and that from the sediment each sample we have analyzed almost 40 to 50 samples of that each single grains of the quartz. So almost 482 samples we have analyzed. So we have a mark on that each and every that structure. You see some sort of structure, right? So now you see that some sort of the flake is coming off the quartz grain, and this quartz grain you see almost around 10 micron. So you see in that the section of the stratigraphy. So have you seen that is written that major break? In that break, you see when I measure one single grain, in that there are two processes involved in the channel. One is kind of fluvial process, another one is aeolian process. In the down one, yes, in the down one, you see that magnetic susceptibility is coming up very low in the down one. But when we try to see in the up, the magnetic susceptibility is kind of, that ECG report wala graph, right? So some of that breakthrough of that. So it means some sort of that fluvial, maybe kind of the flood activities, and also kind of monsoon was intervening in this. But in this phase, it is kind of almost dry condition, and we have noticed and we have got some sort of that aeolian dust kind of grains, which is came from might be in the other part, and also deposited in this, and this structure from that, there are some sort of structure which is define you, give you some sort of that identity that is kind of, that is that the as sorry, that is the aeolian. They have some sort of that criteria, means like address and that mark, and then bubble edges. So those kind of that structure is clearly identify kind of that aridification of that. So this is kind of that high velocity intervention when that kind of that physical weathering and the flake is coming out from this. So this is how you can identify. So this is one of the important. Can you go in the next one? Yes. So this is how we can identify those kind of structures. So what I want to convey. So in that, the ash deposit, in the ash, if you see that the glass shards, that is a silica content, right? So I am pretty sure that is also some kind of that microstructure will be definitely preserved if it is kind of secondary or you work. So in that way, we have also started that work, but could not finish that work because of some sort of funding problem that my second year postdoc. But I have seen some one or two certs, there are some sort of structure. So I can suggest those ECR group. So you can take some sort of that lead. You can do that research. It's very good that you can find some sort of that structure, microstructure. It will be very, the proof, you can prove that is whether the as is belongs to the primary or secondary. If it is secondary, definitely it will be intervention, some sort of that, the things. And of course, some sort of that, if it is not primary in the context, there are no such of that, the fluvial system is intervention. So definitely some sort of that structure you will not get. So this is how that now you see the another sort of that research recently came up in 2025. So some group of that French people, so they collected one that ocean core, right, in the from that Arabian Sea, and that Arabian Sea they basically proposed that around 50 to almost 100 kilo years. So that Toba as not a single event, right? So there will be multiple event has happened during last, I can say 50 years. So this is how the hypothesis also I have proposed in my PhD thesis, but that time I could not prove because I don't have that much, the lab and the time. But now you see that new research has came up. So in between, now you see they are proposing in between, in that 75 and 65, in between 10-year scale, there are almost 5 to 6 kind of eruption is happened. So that could be somehow might be affected through that, who knows. So this is how, can you go in the next one? So this is how the challenges is arise and that science can go ahead because science cannot stop, right? So we have to take an initiative and all. So that's what I can say, that high resolution and that more number of that site is much needed. And of course, the GIS and machine learning can segregate and then sort out those problems. And then another one is called SEDA DNA. So SEDA DNA is one of the best novel proxy. Nowadays, people are working on that. So if any kind of that mixing and non-mixing sediment, so definitely you will face some sort of that DNA intervention, right? So likewise, people are trying to do some sort of that figure of that SEDA DNA, that is called SEDA, means that DNA fingerprints is preserved in the sedimentary context. And now you see that is one of the important. Another, the article came in the Journal of the Human Evolution. So in that cave, in Paleolithic site, they found around 30 to 40 kilo years. There are that is the site where that the human is the modern human was surviving in the cave, and they found some sort of the DNA. Through the DNA, they established that the presence of the human. So this is how you can do some sort of that analysis. And of course, it's one of the, you can say, now the question is whether that the DNA will be preserved in the Indian context or not. So I can say, yes, there are some sort of challenges, and the long-term preservation is very difficult in the tropical environment, because where exactly that the high concentrated of that rainfall and the high amount of the temperature, sometimes that is also, disturb that DNA things. So but in terms of that low altitude area, so DNA preservation things is very good. But still we need to try and error. Trial and error is one of the best medicine, I can say. So nature have always preserved some sort of record, and we have to keep on that. And our eye have to, that try to find out those records. So I hope so. This is the nature that this that SEDA DNA and all this is the high resolution will definitely sort out some sort of that challenges which we are facing right now. So maybe we will be definitely in the future it will become. So this is how we can close my these things, and I would like to thanks. And I know you have a couple of questions and in your mind, so I'll be happy to take all those. Hello, can you
Yeah,
hear me?
so thanks, Dr.
Yeah.
Saran. Yeah, it was a nice presentation. And now the floor is open for the Q&A session. If someone is uh, want to ask the question, you can put in the chat box. And at the same time, you can just unmute yourself and ask to us directly. Okay, so in the meanwhile, others are preparing the questions. I just have one kind of more kind, not a question, but kind of curiosity. Like,
Yes, yes.
so considering this archaeological and paleoclimatic evidences, like what are available today, how do you personally stand under this Toba debate? Because, do you see it is as a truly catastrophic event for human population, or does evidence increasingly point towards a greater human resilience? Like, what is your thought on this?
Okay, my thought is actually see that the recently published by that Clarkson, right, in 2020.
Mm.
So they basically says that the Toba eruption is not that much affected to the human life. So I also agree because the continuation of the different of site, like the different culture, is still continuation. If it is there, then definitely some sort of that gap in between. But of course, for that we need some sort of the DNA that analysis. That is the best way to give the answer. But still we are lacking behind because the DNA means the preservation of that bones and the human bones basically. So we don't have. So only one species is there that is not comes into the modern human. Only that archaean human that process is there. So I believe so in near future might be DNA means the process evidence will come. So that will be means will be the most best way to answer give the answer. But in terms of that climatic evidence, I do believe that is kind of that when the assay is coming and the surrounding entire that, so that might have affected some sort of that ecosystem. So if the assay is floating on the water and they're covering in the land, so might be some microorgan and microorganism. So they might have face some sort of a disturbance. So ecological aspect, I can say some sort of that challenges and Yes, the facility. But in the human things, I don't think so, because they already established this theory.
Thank you so much. We have one question from Amrapali. And sir, is it possible to do organ dating and reworked ash? Yes.
Yes, it's possible. And that you remember I showed you that one that the date, argon date is basically coming. One, I can give you one example. So that Ajab Singh, so he actually tried to do that some argon dating from that close to the Purna Valley. Okay. So when he
Yes, sir.
actually doing some sort of OSL age, so OSL deposition age is coming with working with Dr. Nabeel. So the OSL is coming around 75 kilo years. But when he was
Yes.
proposed that as a that argon dating, so that argon date came around 400, 500 kilo years. It's possible.
Yes.
But again, it is there are kind of that argon dating and that OSL, there are some sort of that means lacking in between. Yes, it's possible.
And he's also asking, can you also suggest some isotopes for the correlation? Other isotopes.
Other isotope correlation in terms of
Like argon
uh,
dating.
okay, no,
Actually,
in term, yes.
so there is some kind of recoiling, that kind of effect on argon. So one of my professors from IIT, he suggested that for reworked, it is quite impossible to do. So I mean, I want to
Yeah,
ask some.
isotope sometime. Yes. Okay,
Another.
I got it. So it's a really difficult because when it is means a rework, na, so that fuel well intervenes and then some kind of contamination happen during, because when you see that that magnetics that in my that site, so when it
Yes.
is open, so it is that oxidation things is happen, right? So oxidation, it is kind of giving some sort of that iron rich on that sample. If you remember my that valley feel of that this the Borakar Valley. So I believe yes, it could be not possible, but in near future maybe science is developing. So maybe I don't know the next of that isotope can be do. But rest of that till now I think other isotope I don't have any idea. If you have, you can.
Yes,
But
sir.
in case of that rework is little bit problematic.
So
But in
then
that
what?
problem you can share, that is the things you can sort out that problem through that microstructure analysis. Because I have done
Okay.
so far, because yes, because I have seen that some of the glassards, there are some sort of that structure is present. But right
Okay.
now I don't have lab. So if you are interested, I have some sort of the sample I can share with you. You can try it, because those who have the
Yes.
good lab means SCM facility and all, you can try it, because that is a good
Currently,
way.
I'm
You can.
working with IIT Bombay, so hopefully I'll get
Okay.
the access to the IIT. Actually,
Okay.
so I'm in like so I'm working on like there's a project this year I'm having on as a
Okay.
GSI.
No, if you okay. No, if you interested, then I can share with you, because see, in that one is very tiny job. I can tell you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That is very time taking and tiny job, because I know
Yes, sir.
personally, because when I go through that 480 to that grain, na, so it will be too much time taking. So in that glass, it is very fragile. In quartz, I can say it is very easy. But in terms of that, the glass shards, it's very fragile sometimes. So very tiny and very difficult, and you have to be carefully do. But if you do, then definitely it will be another breakthrough. But it's possible through only that microstructure. It's possible. I saw that some of that assays, there are some sort of structure, but you need to find out more.
Okay. I have given some one more question. Sorry if I'm interrupting. So,
Yes.
I have submitted one or two samples for TLOSL in GSI only,
Hmm.
but the question is they are not getting any kind of quartz grain within the ash. I don't know how come. So they said it won't be possible for them to do the analysis. So I had a talk with, I guess, Naveen sir only. So
No.
hopefully,
Actually, I think if it is not rework, okay. So in the primary context, if you add that S, you cannot get the quad. And in
okay.
TL, so it is difficult. But in terms of that, the zircon, you can try for the zircon dating. So zircon is, I think, available in that. If you identify, because I got in my sample one zircon grains, I didn't show you in that picture, but I got in one zircon grain. So if you segregate the zircon, then you can go through the zircon dating in uranium and that lead, because the lead isotope is very good for that. Means I guess that some zircon, that Oxford group, they are doing that. So
Okay,
that is
okay.
also possible.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yes, yes.
Thank you. So let me check the chat box. So just one more question I just have. Like whenever we talk about the Toba eruption, and it's mostly it's a report in the Indian sector of the marine, sites like 75 kilos plus minus 5. But why it is not like considered as a kind of like whether it is a regional phenomena or is like we can connect it with some kind of global, you can say the eruption timing or the climatic setup. Like see, like you have to be very specific finding the uh, sites where you can find this event.
Yeah, yeah.
Some studies have reported in the marine, some in the land, but like what is the best suitable site if you want to study this?
Okay, there's two questions. I can take the first one. So first one in that way. So earlier people believe that if you get the S, it means that is stratigraphical marker. Okay. So they believe that is a 74 or 75 kilo years. But nowadays it's not, because there could be possible there are multiple events. So you cannot stick in that is a marker. And of course it's a global phenomena, because that other records like if you talking about that paleoclimatic record from the Hulu cave, from that is the speleothem of that China, and then our cave speleothem record from that you must know that is the 𝐾𝐞𝐫𝐞𝐫𝐞 record from that
Yes, sir.
Himachal. So in that
Himalayan.
they also reported Himalaya region. So during the period of that dry phase, because that MIS4 little bit affected through that. And then second thing, what was that best suitable? Best suitable, that is the marine core, I can say, because terrestrial record is very much challenging, because it is having cut and fill activities. Okay, if you see that now that flood is coming this way, and next year it not possible some sort of the deposition you will get the same well, so that the big event, the flood, it will come, it will go away, wash the land. So it is very difficult kind of situation. In that way, you need multiple sites. But best study, that is the ice, that marine core record, I can say. Like the last record which I present in that the French group. So they took this one that from that Arabian Sea, and they find different of that event on the basis of that glass shards count, and then they model on all the the geochemistry of that. So this is the best way I can say, that is the the continental, sorry, that ocean record is the best.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Saurabh. So I think we do not have any questions or doubts in the chat box, and we are also running a little bit of the time. So I would just like to thank you for giving your time and giving this lecture. I think this was one of the, I think, very descriptive way of talking about the Toba super eruption. And as you agreed to upload this talk on YouTube, so I think that people can go and see your talk again and again, because slides were wonderful and they can get benefit from these things. And also, as you also mentioned your email, so they can directly contact you or reach out to you for any kind of collaboration or any kind of discussion. So thank you so much for this talk, and thanks all.
Yes,
Obviously.
yes. Thank
Thank
you,
you so
Arvind.
much.
Yes, you can upload. Yes, yes. Okay. Thank you
Yes.
very much for everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.